Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Disillusioned by our democratic processes? Well, according to reports, it seems South Africans are open to being led by a dictator if that person fixes the country's problems. This is the shocking finding from a survey presented by Afrobarometer and the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation Head of Research and Policy, Jan Hofmeyr. He joins me now live from Cape Town to just give us some analysis on what they found. Mr. Hofmeyr, thank you very much for your time. I know that you released this report with Afrobarometer, etc. Earlier this week. I believe it was around Tuesday. Now, is it fair for us to interpret the report as saying that South Africans would much rather have a dictator who fixes our problems than a democratic leader who does nothing about them?
Right. Good morning, Masego, and good morning to your viewers. Maybe just a little bit of background on the Afrobarometer, which is a continental survey that we conduct in 39 countries across the African continent, and South Africa is one of them. And we measure issues around governance of the political sphere, but also the economic sphere. So one of the questions that we have asked around questions of democracy is particularly around elections, because within a democracy, elections is the primary way in which citizens have agency in order to decide who governs them and who governs them best. Because one of the advantages of a democracy is that you can also elect an incumbent government out of government when you feel that they don't do what they are doing. So what we have seen in the most recent round that we've conducted in May and June last year is that when we ask South Africans about the efficacy of our democracy, the vast majority still indicates that democracy is the system that they prefer. About 2/3 of our respondents have indicated that. So definitely there is still strong support for democracy as a means of governance. But what we've also seen equally is that there is a growing number or percentage of South Africans who feel disaffected by the system and feel that it does not deliver, it does not provide a better life for all. And that figure over the past decade has increased from about 15% of respondents who have indicated that to about 25%, or a quarter of South Africans who have said that they would prefer a strong leader that is not necessarily elected with extensive powers to make decisions to make a meaningful change in their lives.
So basically, it should be a concern that a growing number of South Africans feel that our democracy doesn't work such a short time after 1994.
Well, it is, one can debate whether it's a short time or a long time. We are relative, almost 3 decades into our democracy. And I think that there are examples around the world of change that has been expedited as a result of very concerted policy making over time and very consistent policy making over time as well. So I think what one does have to add is that globally the democracy is under pressure at the moment, and South Africa is therefore no exception. But I think that's not a way out of it. We as South Africans have to figure out how we can make our democracy work in ways that speaks to the needs of ordinary South Africans, that we can address things like poverty, inequality and unemployment, and also address issues that are very pertinent right now, like the question of our energy utility and the extent to which that is also sort of affecting jobs, poverty and unemployment.
So, I assume that the 25% or so that now is saying that democracy should basically probably be abolished, or that it doesn't work for everybody. Are they blaming the politicians, the leaders for this? Are they saying that, according to what they see, it's the leaders that are hindering democracy from working?
Yeah, I think if you look at who those people are, those who are mostly disaffected by democracy in South Africa is primarily young South Africans. And if you look at the position of young South Africans at the moment, one sees very high unemployment rates, people struggling to get quality education. And even if they get that education and they get into the tertiary system, they leave the tertiary institutions and they struggle to find jobs. And I think this is where we see the most disillusionment. So it is a feeling amongst many South Africans that democracy does not produce that outcome. So the question is it really democracy? I would say it is not necessarily the system, but it's the implementation of the system.
Yeah.
I think if we look at the results or the findings of the Zondo Commission, you ask yourself, we've got a democratic system and a constitution that is lauded around the world, but we're robbed right in front of our eyes. How does that happen? And I think the key issue here is that we did not apply transparency and accountability where it really mattered. And this is why we find ourselves where we are today. So when we want to fix it, this is also, I think, the area where we have to look at transparency, accountability, and also punishment for those that have been pointed out by the Zondo Commission and other similar commissions that have highlighted misappropriation, maladministration.
And I just wonder if South Africans realize the power that we have to change things for ourselves, because we cannot sit and blame, the officials and government all the time. We have seen that has gotten us nowhere. So maybe the issue here is the inability to mobilize.
Indeed. I think that is one of the reasons. I think it is also important that some education also exists around democratic processes. One of the findings that we have also seen is that there is an increasing support for protest as a way of democratic expression. So protest within a democratic context is something that ought to happen. But what we need to remember is that protest usually occurs in relation to specific issues, right?
Yeah.
But when we have the possibility to elect a new government, if we feel that the present one is not doing well, we in the position to do away with leaders that we feel in general are ineffectual.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Jan Hofmeyr from the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. And I mean, we've all seen that protests only have a very small, success because they only make the leaders reactive. And then after that, the problems persist once again.